How's everybody doing? It's the winter solstice, 2022. It's the longest night of the entire year. Pretty cool. Just hanging out, enjoying the weather. It's beautiful here in Sacramento. Can you hear me? I don't know if anybody can hear me. No one's online yet. Just figured I would jump on since I know that I can now utilize the telephone and go live here and there. Um, I haven't really figured out how to use the OBS yet on my computer. I was trying to do it earlier and do a recording and kind of like have a split screen or something that would be breaking down the school board video that I did last year. It's this date today, a year ago. And so, seems a little slow. I wonder what's up with that. If anybody logs on, I'd like to know what the sound is like. Um, Either way, but still. So I was going to report on what we did tonight. Since it's the winter time, and I had never really felt too, I don't know, I guess you could say, familiar with the Christmas history. I was always told the stories of Santa Claus or whatnot, but um, been looking into more of my heritage and my culture and kind of looking into things. And I started looking into like the Yule and all those other stuff and the Christmas tree, etc. And so we started to discuss and look into things tonight and kind of just dig and explore. So we saw something that was a part of our heritage, the sun wheel. We talked about that. Let the kid burn one of those, which is kind of cool. Um, I don't know. I think we'll start adopting different parts of our heritage because, I mean, Christmas seems more consumeristic. It doesn't really feel like it has the whole homely holiday feeling that it used to have. There's got to be something that we could build and, you know, um, I don't know, just have, you know, our family remember. I think it would be kind of cool to go over all the sort of historical facts and data and stories that are more related to us, not necessarily ones that have been spoon fed to me. Like, I was learning about the reindeers today, or the reindeer, excuse me, and how there were 8 of them, and those 8 reindeer represented the 8 legs of Odin, which was kind of cool, I guess, until Rudolph was added in the 1930s. So that was kind of an interesting story. Um, then when the 9th reindeer was added, it was similar to that of the 9 worlds that represent that of Odin in the pagan or the whatever Nordic tradition that Yule comes from, right? Because Christmas was taken and it was adopted, I believe, with pagan, Christian kind of like mix. And if I do believe Christmas falls on Nero's birthday, it's also celebrated as something to do with Christianity, right? So they've been kind of blended together. But a lot of the Viking heritage, and they believe in the sun rising. So there's like a 3-day period where the sun is gone. So they see it as the son of God, right? Because Odin is the god, and the sun is one of them, one of the gods. So just a lot of really cool things that, as you look into history and look into the stories and where they come from and the meanings. It's just really cool to dig and kind of explore your past and your heritage, as well as just the meaning of the holidays that we celebrate, right? I mean, I'm 39 years old, been celebrating Christmas for 39 years this year, right? So I was never really given a historical background or a breakdown of what Christmas meant or the names behind the reindeers. I was just reindeers behind the reindeer. You know, there's just a lot of really cool things about America and our history, how we've adopted so much from so many different places all around the world, right? So, just kind of vibing tonight, letting my kiddo hang out. He's playing some Geometry Dash while I talk, see how this live's doing. Obviously can't attract anybody, right? I have over 1,000 subscribers and it doesn't even get sent out to a single person. I've got a like, which is a surprise. It's nice. I wish they had like a share option. They do, but I think when I share it, it like freezes my screen. So it's crazy. We'll see what happens. Let's try share and see if it stays live. It feels like it's still going live. It is. Okay. Go to Telegram. Reconnecting. See, look at that. It did disconnect me. Look at that. So it let me share, but it didn't do like it used to. It used to just integrate. But I guess because I don't have Facebook like I used to, and I don't have it connected to Instagram or anything like that, usually in the past, it would just integrate and I could tap it and it would just share. But they've made this so much more dynamic now. There's all these regulations and requirements. I remember when I first started using YouTube, you could go live anywhere. You could just have your phone, you could be out, you could see something, you could record it, you can go live. Now, nothing. You have to have 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 hours of view time. That's crazy to think. Like, if you're not using your phone a lot and constantly just pumping out videos, they're not going to give you the ability to go live. I think that's kind of whack. There'd be a lot more videos online if people were allowed to just go live whenever they wanted to. And I think that's what they recognize too. They know that people. What? Verify? Impossible. Impossible. No, just one P. Yep. Possible. So, yeah, I don't know. There's not a lot going on. I just know that it's really slow right now. I figured might as well start getting on here and making it a little bit more regular. I don't do it quite as much as I would like to. I know I don't have as much to do because I'm not out screaming at people anymore and being hella belligerent like I used to be. I've kind of learned to give people their own freedom of speech, if you understand what I mean. I used to think that it was, I guess the way to do it was to go out and yell at people that I opposed, and I don't know. I just don't feel like it's necessary anymore. I think I have a lot more conviction in my belief systems, and I understand what it is that I'm trying to accomplish, and that just going out and yelling at people is not doing it. So this holiday season, I've been trying to be a lot nicer to people, just shake hands and wave at people, and even those that choose to wear a diaper on their face. I try to give them a smile or whatever, and a wave, and just say what's up, because I know inside a lot of those people, they just want someone to say hello. And I know that with that on their face, a lot of people are not communicating like they used to. So people have just been getting a lot sadder than they used to be. I think everyone used to be a lot closer as a community. People would talk to one another. You would go out and do things, and you go to the store and you talk to people. Like I do it all the time. But there's a large majority of people that just, they don't even know what to say. They're like, why are you talking to me, dude? You know what I mean? You'll ask them, hey, how are you? It's nice outside. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Weather's nice. And they're just like, why are you even conversing with me, dude? It's whatever. I know it's a little bit awkward, to come across a stranger, but back in the day, people used to have conversations with one another. You'd see someone you didn't know, you'd say hello, you'd ask them how they're doing, how their day's been, what they've been up to. And it was how you got to know your community. It doesn't seem like anybody does that anymore. Well, it seems like I got a viewer on. Can you tell me if the sound is okay? I would love to know. New pinned chat. I would love to know if you could just comment and tell me what the sound is like. Or if I can even read the comments. I don't really know what it's like. I haven't done a live video in a while. So if you could just simply comment, that'd be wonderful. And I'd like to know if I can read these things. Sounds good. Beautiful. Thank you. So, like I was saying, it's the winter solstice. I was just kind of hanging out, talking about, the year, kind of just going over things. Just really don't have much to say other than just I'm trying to be more active on here and communicate with people. I got 1,000 people on here that obviously feel like conversing with me or following me or whatever, or at least you're friends with me. Most people that are on here are probably from Telegram or somewhere in my inner circle. I have no real way to share this. So if you guys could share it before you go to bed, wherever you are, share it in some page or share it on your YouTube or whatever. Tell people to subscribe. It's been 1 year today since I did the school board video in Lincoln. So I was kind of touching on earlier about where are we today since that last school board meeting in Lincoln a year ago, right? When I said that we were going to run a bunch of people, that we'd make sure there were numerous people running per position, that we would try to achieve change. Where are we? Where are we today from a year ago? And I would say today we are definitely moving closer to waking up the normie people that are unaware of most of what's going on within the school board and most of what's going on in the school systems, as well as what's going on at the border, as well as what's going on just in general, right? People start to notice when it's in their community. And for the longest time, the stories in the extreme left, and we've been making these like videos about random stuff in places that no one had ever really thought it would matter. Like, oh, San Francisco, they're having like crazy story times, or LA, Miami, you know, some liberal stronghold. Oh, they're doing something crazy. And you just start to realize, like, oh, that'll never come to my area. That'll never be here. But now that it's in every community, because the school boards and everybody are like pretty much left and progressive, that the agenda is in every single community around. There's no hiding from it anymore. And so like a year ago when I went and did that video, a lot of people were like, "Why are you screaming about masks, Jeff? Why are you upset about CRT? Why are you talking about, the rights of a specific group on the left that changes their sex?" I don't really like to use the word because it'll get you banned on this platform. But prime example, Bruce is now Caitlyn. Prime example, right? Those people were not everywhere, and now they're prevalent in all communities, as well as a certain group of people that are reading books to our children in libraries. And I mean, it started off with masks and then making certain requirements of your physical body that things go into them for you to be allowed into school. When I gave that speech a year ago, a lot of people were just like, yeah, I kind of see what you mean. But now they're seeing the ramifications, like they're seeing what happens. And I was trying to explain in a video that wouldn't upload because, just I can't get my computer to work because I'm an old person. Apparently, I'm older than I thought. I was talking about how there's like all this mental illness and children are struggling with speech impediments. They are not able to talk right. And so a lot of kids today are unable to speak at the grade level that they should be. So third, fourth, fifth graders are speaking at like first and second grade level. And it's because when the teacher has a mask on, they talk like this, blah, 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 blah. You can't understand. You can't pick up the way the mouth moves and the tongue. It's weird. I A lot of people don't understand how much you learn, and you don't have to like hear it out loud. You're picking it up subliminally. And so we're at a point now where people are starting to realize their children have fell behind 2 and 3 years, and they're wondering, what am I going to do about this? How am I going to catch my child back up? I don't want my kid in the public school system if they're going to do this to me again. And I mean, I live in Sacramento County, and I see that they're already implementing mandates again that'll be coming back via the Department of Health and Human Services. Litter boxes at Rockland High School says it all. Yes, I was discussing this with somebody recently about how we've got children that are identifying on a certain part of the spectrum who are actually being given litter boxes. And children are dressing up. My son is aware of what these. I never in a million years would have thought that my 8-year-old kid could tell me what a furry is, or some adult that dresses up like an animal, right? With weird ears on or whatever, which it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that they want to sexualize anybody and everybody that they can because it's like creating an army, right? Gabriel Geit, a member of Antifa, he was caught on tape stating, I have 180 days as a teacher to revolutionize these children. I'm trying to create an army. Okay? These godless, soulless people who do not plan on having children, okay? Don't have kids most of the time. I don't even know if they plan on having kids or can have kids, especially when you have the surgeries that these people have, right? I mean, how can you assume that they're going to be able to have any form of children when they've mutilated their bodies in ways that's irreparable? So yeah, but these people have put themselves into positions to influence our children. What'd that say? Civilization as we know it is collapsing. It's angels versus demons. Yeah, Sarah, I completely agree. And I think in the past I didn't really understand it because I used to be pretty godless myself, right? I was raised by the school system. I was Hey Eddie, I was hoping you, when I got your text message, that you'd see I was on. I was kind of like, I can't respond because it like disconnects me or something every time. I don't really get it. But um, yeah, I don't know. Civilization is going a really, really bad direction. And I used to hear about Sodom and Gomorrah. I used to hear about, God wiping us off the earth and blah, blah, blah. And I'd think it was like some crazy story and like some out of this world, um, just made up thing by people to scare us. And I've now come to realize that it's 100% true that we as human beings have the ability to, as a society and a culture, become so sinful and so lost in our ways that we can become completely broken as a people. And when I go around my community and I see the amount of homeless, and I see the amount of drug addicts, and I see just the amount of broken families in the community that never used to be. People used to stick it out. I mean, when I walk around my community in Orangeville, it's very, very conservative. It's predominantly white. I think it's like 82% white. So there's like a pretty good, you know, amount of white people, which they claim are supposedly privileged. And there is a lot of homeless. They are everywhere. And so it's like, I'm starting to see conservative strongholds fall. School districts are not putting out kids that are capable of going out into the world and becoming valuable and giving back and contributing. They're basically getting on to being drug addicts and more obsessed with sex. So, like you said, it gets back to the litter box in the classroom, right? If you're going to cater to a child who, in my opinion, really needs some counseling, if you're letting your child identify as a cat or identify as some type of animal, and it's not just as like a joke. I mean, if your kid wants to say, meow, 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 I'm a cat, and it's funny, and you want to laugh about it here and there, okay, cool, I won't judge you as a parent. But when you start to see this being pushed everywhere, you just know it is. That's exactly the truth. They are doing it to lower the population, which for YouTube, burp, 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 let's say this is for educational purposes. But I personally do think that you're right, Eddie. I used to say it all the time. Oh, gay people, don't worry, they just won't have kids. They won't have kids. They won't be able to affect us. But the percentage of gay people was like really low. But when you see the amount of, I don't know even know what we're allowed to call them on YouTube anymore, but if you see the amount of people that are of they like the same sex, if you see the percentage of them, it is like skyrocketed. When I was a kid, I think there was like maybe one kid in my school that leaned that direction. And now, when I see Gen Z in the population, it's something like 40%. I mean, we're talking 2 out of 5 kids in the generation behind mine that is pretty much incapable of having children. They may adopt or whatever, but they're not going to have like a family and have like 5 kids, right? So even if they do adopt one kid, they're still just taking on the responsibility of a heterosexual that didn't fulfill their job as a parent, right? So it's not like they're contributing a baby to the world. They're definitely contributing by taking care of a soul, which I don't want to knock that by any means. Doesn't mean I agree with them taking care of children either, because I'm pretty adamant about my belief system in that you have to lead by example. I mean, if I was sitting around and slamming dope all day and doing horrific things and abusing my wife and beating on animals and doing all sorts of stuff, my child is probably going to think that that's okay, right? So the more that we have become accepting of certain things which are outside of the norm, because we're trying to normalize things, which, if you just think about the terminology, normalize, why would we be trying to normalize anything? Something that is acceptable is going to be acceptable. There's no reason for you to push it, okay? And where people in society are so hurt is they think just because it is the first generation. Well, I don't know, Good Life, if it is the first generation of social engineering, because I would say my mother and the people that dealt with polio, they are pretty programmed, and I don't really want to go too in depth on that on YouTube because they'll ban me or whatever. But if you link how a lot of people respond to the schedule that children respond, there's certain requirements that you need to have to go to school, and one of them involves that disease. And when I talk to a lot of boomers, they're always like, oh yeah, my grandma, she knew someone that had polio and they were paralyzed and they were not capable of walking and their life was ruined. And not to mention our president, right? We had a president who had polio. So they made sure to put it in your face. And then Jonas Salk came along. No, I hear you. Um, Social engineering, internet mindset, I got you, where they're all kind of like hearing the same message and they've all got cell phones and there's not a community like church and parent and stuff that's like a gatekeeper. I've got you. I've been making that argument for a very long time. We were still we were still able to separate the message that the media was giving to our children because a parent, 9 times out of 10, was sitting down with the child watching TV or listening to the radio. So there really wouldn't have been any like my son gets, right? Like he goes on YouTube right now and he can look up stuff that I never would have let him look up at his age. But it happens all the time where he'll talk about something that he saw on YouTube or on the internet that I'm like, how did you hear about that? And he's just like, oh, it's on the web. That is the difference that I can understand what you're talking about, because in the past it would have had to have been like a newspaper or the three major news medias. And we've broken away from that to where there's thousands of different media options that you can get, whether it's social media, whether it's the newspaper, whether it's telephone, radio, whatever. Twitter, which is social media again. But there's just numerous ways to receive news. Even YouTube. Like if my son's watching a creator and the creator wants to talk about stuff that's going on, and they really do influence in a different way, because we were talking about this the other day again, like the people who are featured on YouTube, most of them run in this small circle, and this small circle all pump out the same message. They're constantly, I mean, if you were to watch them, and they're all friends, they all have each other on. They all do videos about the exact same thing. They saturate their group of kids with a certain message, a certain brand. They buy a certain car, like we were talking about. They've all got Teslas. Oh, and that's the other thing. I was talking about that to my son. They have no idea what it's like to wait for a commercial. My son gets very impatient having to wait for anything because he has no commercials, right? We live in a DVR world. So where we had to learn to be patient, you had to talk to your mom or dad between commercials. You'd go and get some food, take a break, whatever. Kids can now watch TV and it's non-stop, no commercials, no breaks. If you pay for like Spotify, Red YouTube, Netflix, Amazon Prime, just non-stop, right? They've got endless amounts of entertainment, and then not to mention endless amounts of access with phone and the internet, with tablets. So we are in a very different way as a community, and it's been difficult to keep certain values and morals and convictions when your children and your community are being bombarded by a message that's coming from everywhere. In the past, the community still had its own like feeling, you know. Today, I've traveled a lot of this country, and I know Eddie, you could probably agree with me on this, that when you travel around the country today, it's almost like every state is almost the same. Whereas, like 30 years ago, when I would travel, you would go to Kansas City and they were like different. The food was different. The communities were different. You go to Florida or you go to Georgia or you go to Portland or whatever. And now they're all the same. There's a Walmart, there's a Target, there's a Lowe's, there's a this. And those major stores and those chains and corporations have driven out all the small communities and the small businesses. This is why they are promoting mixed marriage. They want us. Yeah, you don't want to get into that one, Eddie. That's a real difficult topic to talk about on this platform. I could go all day long about that. I mean, that falls in line. I think you and the boys that have talked about what's going on at the border are a prime example of exposing open BORDERSs, and basically the reason for that is exactly what you just said. They bring enough people in here, they will change the demographic and they will change the voting and they will change the entire face of this country. I mean, let's be real. Even if you were to bring in a majority of South Americans, Central Americans, and Mexicans, it's Catholic, and we were predominantly Christian, so there is a vast difference. And that is changing. So as they're bringing in these people that used to be predominantly religious, they're bringing these people into a world filled with consumerism and a breakdown of the nuclear family. So there's a lot of people that are coming here now that are no longer traditional. They're not coming here getting married. They're not coming here to have children. They're not coming here and sticking with their own people, which is fine. If you want to do interracial marriage, that's your choice, right? But when the government is doing it strategically or forcing it upon your people when they're not asking for it, that's a different story. So that's when people start to get mad, you know what I mean? But they want us to look alike so that we then don't have like individual groups, right? Because if we're all the same, it's very easy to conquer you. Where when you have individual groups with individual thought processes and cultures and heritages, so like the blacks and their culture and their heritage, and the Jews, like prime example, when they were trying to require people in New York to do a certain thing, the Orthodox Jews were not having it. They were like, you will not put that in our bodies. And the government was tripping because normally those people, they're like, protect those people. So it's like they didn't know what to do in the class that they're always screaming to protect was standing up for them and going against the narrative, right? So again, if they could get everyone to get in line and be the same color, same religion, same government, same money, same everything, they don't have to worry about branding. They can just like spit out this diarrhea, this verbal garbage that they do that fits the mass. And right now, it's very difficult for them to disseminate a message when you have, prime example with Trump, you got 82 million people that voted for Donald Trump. That's like a third or a quarter of the whole country. So if you have a quarter of the entire populace that voted for somebody, that's a hard mindset to change, right? So what they're having to do is bring in 200 million people, 300 million, I mean, if you look at the immigration plans that they have for North America, I've tried to explain to people, you think 15,000, 20,000, 100,000 is a lot. Get ready, baby, for a ride because it's going to get real. I've seen Trudeau and I've seen the people involved with, um, the North American pact that they were talking about. We're talking 600 million people are expected to be coming to this country in the next 5 to 7 years. Okay, so I suspect that with this ending of Title 42, there is going to be so much planned immigration, planned resettlement, whatever you want to call it, redistribution of certain groups of people, because they are going to take away the money of the boomer. Okay, there are millions of boomers dying right now. Every single year, the last couple years, there's been a few million boomers that have died. Okay, well, redistribution of wealth. Okay, their money gets absorbed by the system, which was in the hands of a certain group of people. It will then be redistributed to a different group of people. And you're seeing a lot of mayors from around the country talking about how their countries are overwhelmed. They're unable to handle the influx of immigration. They don't know what they're going to do. What do you think's going to happen when there's like hordes of people? We're not talking a couple hundred like at Martha's Vineyard, right? They were tripping on 24 people arriving in a bus. Could you imagine 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 people arriving in a month? I mean, you have to realize we've got 50 states, okay? 50 states. If every state was to take 1 million people, that would be 50 million people. Well, they're talking about 600 million people on the low end, okay? So that's a lot more. That's 10 times the amount. So that would be, what, 12.5 million people per state? I'm assuming states like California, Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, New York would be willing to take a lot more because we already know how friendly these states are to certain groups of people. They have open door policies. They're sanctuary states, sanctuary cities. They have no plans of stopping. I mean, if you listen to Joe Biden just the other day, I heard his debate video from 2019. He was running like to go for this current where he is now. And he goes, there's going to be a surge at the border. A surge. I mean, we already have a regular immigration pact with the world where we, as the first world, America, has agreed to, I believe, we take 1 million people from around the world annually as an agreement because we're capable. They've figured out over time bringing in 1 million people is appropriate. It's a way for that group to assimilate with the country that they're coming to, right? That's what our previous government employees and elected officials have decided was reasonable. But I mean, if you've ever seen the gumball video where the guy sits there and describes the gumballs and you drop in like one or two and you see how the world is still producing masses amounts of certain people with a certain mindset and a certain education level. These people do not have the resources capable of surviving. Maddox, go back to your game. No. You gonna build? I don't want you gaming with anybody online, okay? But more or less, the third world is breeding at such a crazy high rate that bringing in 1 million people really does nothing to help solve the hunger issues and the poverty problems around the world. What we really need to do is teach people how to be reasonable, responsible, and educated in their countries so that they can manage their resources in their home. Because the amount of resources used to transplant people here and then the amount of money that it's going to take to house and feed and educate them here is going to be far too burdensome on the American people. Okay? We really, really need to figure out what it is that we're going to do here in this country because our school systems are overwhelmed. Okay? Borders are overwhelmed. Healthcare systems overwhelmed. Welfare systems overwhelmed. And we don't have enough houses. Okay? We have BlackRock who is buying up everything. They're paying more than the market value for all these individual homes. I was reading a report that they're paying substantially more than what a normal person could offer for a home simply because they know that as they buy up all of these homes over time, when they've collected all of the homes, they then can charge whatever rate they want, right? Because doesn't it only make sense that if, as you slowly accumulate more houses and more real estate and more property, the more power you have to control the price, right? And so, even at a certain point where, because I'm not even sure if these major corporations are even owned by governments or if there is an elite group that might own them. And what they're doing is buying up the properties. And then in time, what if they become so powerful that they actually buy every single house? Like, I mean, I know it seems like crazy to think about, but Bill Gates is already the largest farm owner in the entire country, right? And let's just say that BlackRock decides they want to buy every single house. Well, what would we do if they want to buy every single house and charge us astronomical rates to live in those houses? Or let's just say you're never going to be allowed to buy. You'll only be allowed to rent. So you as a peon, just a normal citizen, you will never be allowed to own a home, own property, because they have accumulated every single private property that exists, right? So there's a lot of things that we have to consider. I just don't know what it is that we're going to do as a country. So I do like to come on here and bounce ideas off my friends and my fellow patriots and just common sense conservatives, right? Because I mean, I find myself to be more of like a constitutionalist than I do a Republican because I don't think that the Republican Party has it anymore. I think the GOP has completely fell flat. I think the fact that the GOP calls me racist and all I've ever said is that we need to have a border policy that will allow for assimilation. We don't need unsequestered immigration with crazy amounts of numbers of people coming in where we can't control who's coming in. We can't control if there's drugs or human trafficking or, even worse, child trafficking beyond the human. Children are the most precious cargo. And to see what's going on right now and how people are bringing in children and then going back and coming in with other kids over and over and over, and basically stating that the kid that they're coming with is either theirs or they're taking them to the destination house. I mean, I've seen videos from my friends Ben and Will and Anthony and Eddie and Josh and everybody. I mean, just everybody. My friend Linda, anybody who goes down there. And they've shown these people going through the fences, coming into the country, and then they go right back through the same hole. And they go down, they've got these bracelets for these poor children. They're being brought in, given a debt, being told, you go to America, you get a job, you owe us this much money for getting you here. We have opened up our country to be turned into a giant human trafficking organization, right? So, like, the fact that the Republican Party has a problem with me stating we should have closed borders because it would simply protect children, women, America, and just human beings in general is blasphemous. The GOP is cucked to the left. They now are basically the Democratic, I guess, tag team partner. They're like the uniparty. I don't even say they're like Democrats. They're progressive aides. Because look at McCarthy. Look at McConnell. Look at the shit that they're doing right now. Let's be real. This gay marriage bill, that is total shit. Why is the government involved in marriage anyway? The government has no right to say who is allowed to get married, who isn't allowed to get married. In my opinion, the government should only be doing things that we as voters ask them to do. No one voted on that. No one told them to do that. They did that because they're a bunch of partisan hacks who, in my opinion, are like driving a nail into the coffin of the Christian America. And I'm not even a Christian person. I'm just a person with Christian ethos. I think a lot of what Christianity stands for is amazing. I think that if America would follow along with the ethos of Christianity, we'd be in a much better way. We're in a horrible place today because Satanism and Luciferianism and atheism and the godlessness has taken hold. People don't care about anything. People don't respect the sanctity of life. That's why the left promotes abortion like they do. But you just start to realize that it's a very deep, weird situation that we're here in America because we don't have anyone to come save us, right? There's no one that's going to come help us like Zelensky, right? We're helping Zelensky and Ukraine with billions of dollars in aid and help, sending them Patriot missiles and everything else you could think of. Who's going to help us when the hordes have come and ransacked, raped, and pillaged our country for all of our resources? Everything that we once had that was great is being stolen and given away and sent away to other countries. They've stolen our technology, our science, our manufacturing. Our military's been downgraded. They're a bunch of feminist, feminazi, progressive, Marxist, insane people who are on a lot of pharmaceutical drugs. And I think that as the world watches us on TV and on the internet, we slowly but surely become the laughing stock of the globe. And I think eventually in time, there's going to be a point where people no longer are going to just sit back and laugh. They're going to come and take our country. They're going to come take everything because they're going to think that we're all a bunch of ninnies that wear dresses and we're on psychotropic drugs and that we think that we're dolphins and we identify as non-binary leprechauns. You know, we have fallen so far from what we once were that it's only a matter of time before everybody in the world realizes that if we come to America, we can take everything from them and they'll do nothing. We can take their food, their women, their land, their resources. I mean, water is finite. We have very large freshwater, lakes. We have access to the ocean. We have farmland. And we're just divvying it up and giving it out to the world. And at the same time, demonizing ourselves. So we're going to have nowhere to go as Americans. And trust me, folks, we as Americans are very identifiable. You know, when we go to Europe or Africa, they don't just see a white person or a black person. If you're black and you go to Africa, you best bet they know exactly who you are and that you're American. Okay? If you're white and you go to Europe and you talk like we do, you best bet they're going to know exactly who you are. And they think that you're weak, that you're pro homo, you're probably like a California liberal, because that's the assumption, because they have made Hollywood the vision and the stereotype of the typical American. So we once used to be seen as strong, hardy fighters because we controlled the narrative. We controlled Hollywood. We controlled the message. We don't control that any longer. We do, but the message is no longer pro us. We are seen as weak, and they're going to come, and only in a matter of time before they come for what they say we stole from them, right? As they slowly convince the generation that we don't deserve it, that we've just stolen everything. They will come, you know? So, it's getting late. My phone is getting low on energy. It looks like I'm down to about 13%. It's down for a few more minutes. What time is it? It's 11:42. It's kind of late. Got one viewer on. Someone's sticking it with me. Appreciate you very much. Like I said, just bored. The longest night of the year, the winter solstice. Talked about the Yule log tonight. Talked about how it's been. Excuse me. 1 year since my viral video in Lincoln, which I can't believe it. It was shown on InfoWars, Stu Peters, Vincent James, Conservative Treehouse. I mean, it was seen millions of times. Steven Crowder, crazy. So, yeah, we have come a long way. The masks are coming back. Mandates are coming back. I feel like a different type of lockdown will be coming soon. I think it'll have something to do with the climate. I think they'll use the mandates they've already used with this last lockdown, and they will utilize all of the, I guess you could say, regulations and mandates that they've put through local regulatory and bureaucratic bodies, and they seem to have locked it down, right? Because, I mean, in Sacramento, starting next year, it will be illegal for doctors to promote misinformation. So I don't even really know what that means anymore. That's why, as I've spoke tonight, I'm trying to tread lightly. I don't know how well it's going to go over for me. I know that YouTube has a tendency to red flag everything I do in terms of extemporaneous talks. They usually like to flag me for misinformation of some kind, even though I don't ever say anything that's not an opinion of mine, because everything tonight that is stated is the opinion of mine and mine alone. And so, if you'd like to look into the things that I've said, you can look them up. I always recommend doing your due diligence. Anytime somebody says something that sparks your interest, it's a good idea to, you know, look it up and fact check that person, because I would never want to go and say something or use it to support an argument knowing that I can't factually support that argument. That's why a lot of the time the people that I'm arguing against don't like me very much, because I can support my argument with factual data and it's irrefutable. It's not really something that's like, I guess you could say, up for opinion or up for debate, right? You can't really argue certain things. Proton mail. So, yeah. Who's left on? Who does? It doesn't even tell me who's on anymore. It used to tell me. Good life. But yeah, bro, I'm about to check out. It's late. It's like super late. But I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Thank you very much. Summer solstice next. Got like 6 months to go. We got the spring equinox, which is my son's birthday. I love it. So, yeah, I appreciate you guys all very much. Have a wonderful night. I look forward to doing these more often. Talk to you guys soon. Later.